AI is everything right now, but there's a big gap between what's being marketed and what actually works inside real companies. For this fireside chat, we want to focus on practical AI, how it's really being implemented, where it breaks down, and what technology leaders should be paying attention to. I'm Jocelyn Sexton, VP of Marketing at Growth Acceleration Partners, and I'll be guiding today's conversation. Today, I'm joined by AI consultant Charlie Scott for an honest conversation about the reality of AI in enterprise environments. So Charlie, welcome.
Thank you.
For people meeting you for the first time, what's your background and what kind of AI work are you focused on right now?
My background is in enterprise tech. So for over 20 years, I introduced new technology to customers, and I would do that in a way that was minimally disruptive. Now I founded Outer Limits AI, and we're focused on small to medium businesses and seamlessly helping them use AI and automation. So we go to them and we help them find opportunities and implement practical solutions.
So you've lived through multiple hype cycles. What makes this particular cycle, this AI wave, different? And what's the biggest lie being sold right now?
This wave is certainly unprecedented in speed and size. And investment. The biggest lie right now, from my perspective, is the idea that in the near future, there will be autonomous AI agents that are able to work on their own. And it's everywhere. Everybody's talking about that. But I haven't seen any examples or evidence that that's really going to happen. When I use AI for extended periods of time, it makes lots of mistakes. And it does really good things too. But being able to correct that along the way is very important.
So you said something I loved in a previous conversation that you and I had. You said, AI often produces outputs that are grammatically excellent, but totally miss the mark. So what does that mean? And what does that look like in real business scenarios?
An example of that would be where you ask AI for a message that explains to a customer why you missed a deliverable. And it comes back with something that's grammatically correct and it presents it very confidently. But if you have the confidence to read deeply and say, like, is this really good? Like you would do with a person, oftentimes you'll find that it misses historical context. And sometimes it doesn't, you don't even have to read very far to see that it blamed something that was not even to blame. So it's lying and it's setting you up to lie if you just accept it the way it is.
Sometimes when leaders or people in technology see those polished answers, they assume AI is right. So where does that go wrong most often? In customer-facing work, in internal operations, engineering, where's the biggest danger zone?
Well, I think it goes wrong equally across those areas. And then just the importance of it is probably least in engineering because there's testing on all that will ideally find that. And then in internal situations, someone's probably going to lose a little bit of reputation for having said something. But again, that seems much less than the impact to brand, which is invaluable.
Agree. Yep. So what's the real fix? If you had to summarize it in one phrase, what does human in the loop actually mean in practice?
Human in the loop means that the human owns the output, period. Full stop. If they don't blame the AI, and really that's one of the strongest markers of a leader right now is fully accepting ownership for things that they release.
So if a company wants to improve accuracy, what's the difference between iterating with prompting versus using a RAG approach?
So both of those are scenarios of human in the loop, and they just look a little different. The iterating process is you submit a prompt and you get something back and you see that parts of it are right and parts of it are not, and you go back and forth and you correct it and you ask for fixes until it's exactly what you want it to be, until it's as good as it can be. The RAG scenario, which is retrieval augmented generation, but people call it RAG, and that is a situation where the solution only derives its answers from content that is in a knowledge base. And so the human in the loop part in those scenarios happened when the knowledge went into the knowledge base. All of those humans that entered that data approved it, and it came from approved sources. So the RAG solution only delivers from that.
So we've seen this a lot. Some companies are tempted to wait because AI models are improving so fast. You want the latest and the greatest. Should leaders wait, or should they be building now?
From my perspective, now is a great time to put together a business case for things that you think AI can do. In many scenarios today, the business case can be so good that the result will be the three big things: better, cheaper, and faster. So the fact that you can do that with AI is somewhat unprecedented.
What if you come across a CTO who says AI isn't ready? Would you agree? Would you argue? What would you do to convince that person differently, maybe?
Well, if they are talking about autonomous solutions and that's their goal, then I think they're right. We're not ready for that. But I think in terms of AI that is assisting humans and making humans go faster and produce better, more consistent results, AI is ready for that.
You've described 6 main areas where AI is already delivering business value. Can you quickly walk through those 6 categories?
Sure. So there's workflow automation. That's really just removing the repetitive things. There's product enhancement, which is adding features that smart features to your products. There's intelligence and decision-making assistance, and that would be research and adding the ability to assess more data quickly to come up with better decisions. There's knowledge management. That would be looking at the broad set of knowledge that a company has and making sure that that's distributed. There's customer interaction, which is to say that interaction with customers can be more personalized and more complete today than it used to be able to be for less money, keeping within the resources. And then there's content creation. And by content creation, I really mean information fluidity, which is to say you've got a single source of data like a tech spec, and you can use that without a whole lot of human work to create a marketing piece or a board presentation, something like that.
So if you had to bet on just one of these categories that will create the fastest ROI for most mid-market companies, which one wins and why?
For today, the workflow automation is the most straightforward one. It's internal so that it's controlled. It's lower risk that way as well. And you can immediately come up with a solution that's measurable and has clear success metrics.
So let's change topics a little bit and let's talk about design thinking and then the annoyance audit. So you argue that most companies start AI backwards, that they start with the tool instead of with the problem. So let's talk about what's a better way to start.
Sure. Design thinking was just a wonderful revolution that came back in the early 2000s, where really people started focusing on what is the problem. It was around the time that a book came out called The Inmates Are Running the Asylum, where the technology was like really in charge of things. And I think when we focus on the problems that a company has, instead of what can I do with AI, and then deal with those problems in the best possible way, which today is often AI, but sometimes not. That's the solution to coming up with the best solutions today.
Okay. And Charlie, I've heard you talk about something, calling it the annoyance audit. So what does that look like in the real world? And if I'm a VP of engineering, how do I actually run one?
Yeah, so these are easy. You get your team together and you ask them, what is the work that you like least? You know, in your work, there's a casual conversation. Let's list out the things that we like least. You put them on a piece of paper and you prioritize what you think could be done to automate it and to remove that burden from your employees and make them happier, make your work better, faster, more consistent, less expensive.
So let's imagine a scenario where things aren't going well, or you think maybe things aren't going well. What are some of the signs that you made the wrong choice? You've picked the wrong AI use case. What are some of the red flags?
It would be a red flag if you didn't really know what good enough looks like. Like if you don't know the success metrics from the start and you just keep developing in the dark that way, trying to see like, well, does it work this way or that way? Then you probably need to redefine.
Everyone's talking about how AI agents, they're talking about them like they are autonomous employees. What's your reality check on that for business leaders?
I haven't seen anything that like that. When I work with AI, it makes significant errors frequently, which is not to say that I don't benefit greatly from it, but it continues to make poor decisions. If I ask it to fix things, it quickly does. And working back and forth, I can create better content more quickly, but at the same time, not always more quickly, because sometimes it takes so much work to go back and forth that it takes up maybe about the same amount of time. But I do think the output is better, and it is worth doing it with AI.
Yeah, agree. I think sometimes people misunderstand that it sometimes can take longer or the same amount of time, but the output is better. So I've heard you compare agents to the textbook description of a role, almost like a new employee who doesn't quite understand the business yet. So what is that analogy, or what does it do to help leaders understand when we're talking about agents?
From my perspective, agents today are kind of like glorified custom GPTs, which is to say they understand your language and they've probably been programmed with a lot of textbook knowledge about how things should do and maybe some information about how the company likes things done. But it doesn't have complete understanding of what you want. It doesn't have a complete understanding of how the company works or the people that are around you, the people in the business is vital to know that in order to understand how to communicate and what people are looking for. And because it doesn't have that, it's going to keep coming back with things that are good but not great, and more good but not great going back and forth between autonomous agents trying to talk to each other just will spiral down into more errors.
Right. So have you personally seen a real scenario, I assume, where agents work without a human in the loop? And if not, what breaks? What have you seen?
Well, recently I have seen a new development that I think is promising and great, and that's in the coding world, where there are vibe coding tools today that start out, you ask them to do something, and they start out by finding what they think are good success criteria for what you're asking for. And then it will keep going until it meets those success criteria, which is very impressive. It just works until it has something to do. Now, did it come up with the right success criteria to begin with? Sometimes, and probably more often for coding than for a broader question that's like, business just direction has more probably dimensions in the decision than that. But that's a promising direction. If we can do that and have things work toward the right success criteria, I would have more confidence that they're not wasting their time.
What should companies build if they're not going to keep waiting or dreaming of this idea of autonomy? What should companies be building instead?
Well, there's a lot that they can do, as we've talked about. But I think the most valuable thing right now are these workflow automations, which is to say, helping employees be faster and do things that are using their skills more fully. Things that take a lot of copy and pasting or searching between two things that they don't like doing, are things that AI could do just fine and quickly, and just make people's jobs better and make them more productive. The ability to augment what they are doing is there today. It's so easy to make a business case for that, and I think the world is ready for that. Companies are ready to do that.
Yep. I need AI to wash dishes for me so I can do the fun stuff.
Or dishes.
So slight change of topic, but important. Let's talk about ethics, AI ethics specifically for leaders. So you've used the phrase before, radical responsibility. What does that mean in the context of AI?
Radical responsibility, in my view, goes back to what we were saying before, which is to say the person who deploys or outputs the code or the results is fully responsible for it. That's just the bottom line. The person's responsible. AI is not responsible. And I think leaders, in addition to showing that type of responsibility, there probably needs to be holding people accountable for doing things that that are based on AI that didn't come out exactly right, and they just didn't think about it. It's important for people to know that that's not acceptable.
So, short answer, if an AI system makes a mistake, who owns it?
The person who released it.
So, why is the agents as autonomous employees, that narrative, why is it dangerous from an accountability standpoint?
That concept seems to imply that accountability can be handed off to AI, and AI doesn't have ethics and doesn't have judgment, and people do. And so that type of consideration can lead to a lot of money wasted on the types of endeavors that are looking for more automation, where really it should be tools for humans. Humans are responsible for using them. It leaves us sort of restricted by the maximum speed of humans, and that's where we are right now. Someday maybe we'll get to the point where they're autonomous, but we're far from that right now.
Right. It is nice to know that humans are still important.
I think so.
So, in closing, at Growth Acceleration Partners, we work a lot with CTOs and VPs of engineering. What's one piece of advice for 2026 planning and beyond? What would that be for CTOs and VPs of engineering?
My advice would be go to your team, find out what feels like just complete waste of time to them, pure waste, and automate that away. In that sense, the employees will appreciate it, and you'll start to understand how AI can work in the context of your business, and you can scale that from there.
And if a leader wants to start small or take one next step, what would be that first small step that they could take this month?
Well, again, I think it's holding that annoyance audit. It's finding out where the problems are, finding out what's holding up the team and keeping them from working more efficiently. And I think if you work on that, again, they'll appreciate it. They'll start to feel like they understand what AI can do for them and come up with more ideas of their own of how it can be implemented.
Okay. Charlie, thank you again for all your answers. We really appreciate it. And this has been Growth Acceleration Partners and our conversation about the reality of AI in enterprise environments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn.